Captain Parrott, it is now all yours.
Okay, good afternoon, folks. Glad you could join us. When I say afternoon, maybe some of you it's still morning, depending on your time zone. I'm pulling up a PowerPoint that I'll share with you. So my name is Dan Parrott. I'm the chair of the Marine Transportation Department. And having just listened to the provost, you've gotten a great overview of the programs that are available here. And I'm going to, much of the rest of the afternoon, people will go into more detail on those things. So can you see, are my slides up? Great, okay. A little bit about myself. I had a 20-year career at sea, worked all over the world, a variety of vessels, although my area of specialty was tall. I spent a lot of time doing that. And now I've been teaching at Maine Maritime Academy for almost 18 years, recently becoming the department chair. And I've got a couple of students with us here today, and I see George there, and I think I saw Emily. And so George is about to graduate from the third mate program, and Emily is a senior in the limited tonnage vessel operations and technology program. And why don't you each just introduce yourself? George, can you go first?
Yeah, so thank you, Captain Parrott. So like you said, my name is George Albert. I'm a senior in the Marine Transportation Operations Program. I am in the regiment, so that's the uniform that I'm wearing today. I am not from Maine. I'm from a small town in Virginia. And I am also in the ROTC program as an SSO community. And we'll talk about that a little bit more later.
Thanks, George. And Emily, are you there? Well, I did see her before.
Yes. Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, okay. Hi. Please introduce yourself.
I'm Emily Conway. I'm a senior in the Vessel Operations and Technology program. I'm non-reg, so no uniform for me. I am also not from Maine. I'm from South Carolina, Charleston area. Also with George, part of the admissions program, and also a member of the women's soccer team.
Great. Well, thanks for joining in, both of you, and being with us today. So, as said, the provost gave an overview of all of our academic programs, and so right now, and that's a lot of information, of course. So I'm going to spend a little time breaking that down into smaller pieces, and then I know that you will have questions, and those questions can be to me, but they could also be to our students, and that's why we're so pleased to have them here with us. Okay, so in our program, our department is Marine Transportation, okay, and in a wider sense, that means the deck side of running a ship. So every ship has basically two major departments. There's the engineering side, which is the propulsion and the systems, and the deck side, which is the navigation and cargo and everything that's out on deck. So we're sometimes known as deckies, and the students and faculty alike. So we have two four-year bachelor programs in our department. There's Marine Transportation Operations, MTO. I know you're getting a lot of initials thrown at you too. And that's the program that George is in. So it's regimental. It leads to a third mate license, which is an entry-level officer. Okay, it's a four-year program and a bachelor's. Also, our second four-year program is the Vessel Operations and Technology, VOT, and that's the program Emily is in. And this leads to a limited tonnage license. And as we go on, I think I can shed some more light on just what tonnages look like. But MTO is unlimited tonnage, all oceans, and VOT has a cap on the tonnage, although it can be an ocean license for sure. Then we have an associate's degree, two-year program that leads to, so we call that the Small Vessel Ops program. It's an associate's degree, and it leads to a 200-ton near coastal mate license. Academies don't graduate captains, so everybody starts as a mate one way or another, and then as their career advances, they can move toward captain. Okay, so different licenses. Licenses are an essential part of our program. That is your stock and trade. The license is yours. It's portable. You can take it anywhere in the world. So it's our most important credential that goes with our programs. And it says here you must pass the Coast Guard exam that goes with that license. Right. So I never like to tell people you get a license. Nobody gets a license. Everyone has to earn it. And that comes down at the end, either near graduation or soon after graduation, a multi-module, multi-day exam that's administered by the Coast Guard. So we try to prepare students for that, but the students have to do a lot of preparation themselves too. It's definitely a major test. So as said, MTO, third mate of oceans, any tonnage. So this program is designed and oriented toward bigger ships, container ships, oil tankers. We'll see some pictures of ships in a little bit. That's the general career path, but a student with an unlimited license can work on smaller vessels too. They have that option, but the program is really designed, and the summer experiences are also designed to expose these students to ocean-going shipping. And to be in that program, regimental participation is required. All students have the option of being in the regiment, but certain programs, it's a requirement, and this is one of them. So VOT, this is our other four-year program, bachelor's. So when we get into tonnages, there's sort of a schedule of tonnages. They don't have a 520-ton license or a 312-ton license. There are these certain cutoffs. And so with this program, the coursework and the approval that we have from the Coast Guard and the sea time that students get in the summer can lead them to either a 500-ton mate license or a 1,600-ton mate license, near coastal or oceans. So licenses are divided by tonnage, but also by the waters of operation. And I'll elaborate on that shortly. And then the small vessel operations, the two-year associate's program leads to a 200-ton license. Sorry about that. And before I go on, George or Emily, do you want to jump in on anything there that you think I may have missed?
No, I think you covered it pretty well there, Captain Parrott.
Pretty good. Are we going to be talking
Okay.
about co-ops and stuff later too?
Yes, we will.
Perfect. That's the only thing I had add.
Okay. All right, so more about credentials. So credentials are really an essential part of this profession. We've talked a little bit about licenses. We will a little bit more. There's a thing called a TWIC, Transportation Worker Identification Credential. And you know, new certificates are coming along every few years, and we have to get more things. But so the TWIC has only been around, basically it came out of after 9/11, so it has to do with security. The license we talked about a little bit, the tonnage breakdowns there. And then the waters are listed there. So it can be an inland license, a near coastal license, or oceans. Oceans means anywhere in the world. Near coastal means out to 200 miles offshore. And then inland is more protected waters. It could be Long Island Sound or New York Harbor, San Francisco Harbor, Puget Sound, places like that, where there is a tremendous amount of maritime activity. There are other types of endorsements, we call them, that can attach to a license. So you have your basic license, but you can get an endorsement to operate sailing vessels, for instance. And that takes another exam and some different types of requirements. You can get an endorsement for operating tugboats, okay? And there are numerous other types of specialty endorsements when the nature of the work requires some specialized knowledge above knowing just how to navigate. The FCC is a part of our world also, so students get a certificate in GMDSS, which is a system of communications equipment that's global in nature, and it involves a number of different pieces of equipment that students have to get proficient at. And there's a course called Marine Communications that covers that. Another agency, you might say, that's part of our world, the Coast Guard is the biggest one for sure, but there's a global organization called the IMO. It's part of the United Nations, and the IMO has the task of trying to standardize shipping around the world to keep it, to move things toward a safer operation and more sustainable. And so one piece of the IMO's activity is this STCW, the Convention of Standards of Training, Certification, and Watchkeeping, which is woven all through our curriculum. All of the professional courses that you would take here have some sort of STCW component, but it's embedded in the class or in the training cruises that a student may be on. Anything to throw in there? All right, we'll keep rolling. Something I do want to say about licenses. So our programs are designed to lead towards certain licenses that we laid out there. Licenses can always be raised to a higher grade. And so it's very common for a student after a couple of years of working at sea to elevate their license. So that applies to all licenses. It's not as if a person is stuck with the license that they first got. So a typical academic year, and this is where we will talk a little bit about co-op and be happy to hear from George and Emily about their summer experiences. But anyway, our traditional school year is 14 weeks of class and then a week of final exams, 2 semesters a year. And then summer comes, and as you've been picking up from others, this is not like any other college. Our students go out and they do real work in their summer, and that's a requirement. They need to do it because they need C days to get a license. Okay, it's not just completing the coursework. They have to accumulate a certain number of C days, and that standard is set by the Coast Guard. So that's one way they do it. And then also they make contacts in the industry that often lead to their first jobs. So the third mate program, the MTO, has the following summer program. After the freshman year, students go out on our training ship, the State of Maine, see a picture of that in a little bit, for a 70-day training cruise. These days often do change. They've changed several times since I've been here, and they will probably change again, but that is the most recent, was 70-day cruise on our training ship with faculty and the ship's crew on board to train them, to teach them. And they do maintenance, they navigate, they run the ship in many ways with the oversight of the crew. After sophomore year, students go cadet shipping. And so this is when a student gets assigned to a ship out there in the real world, possibly operating all over it could be the Indian Ocean, it could be the Pacific Ocean, the Atlantic, anywhere. And they're on a ship with a crew who have, for the most part, also the officers have gone through a program like this and had a cadet shipping experience. And that's a 90-day program. And Career Services does a great job of making these connections and keeping these relationships out in the industry. Then after junior year, another training cruise. At this point, the students have got a bit of experience, quite a bit more than they did as freshmen. And this is a chance to give them more responsibility and get some more of their STCW competencies taken care of. You want to say something about your experience there, George, with cruise?
Yeah, I can. So my freshman year, I was on the training ship for 74 days. We left Castine, went down to New York Harbor, picked up some fuel down there, and then shipped across the Atlantic Ocean all the way over to Europe. And from there, we went to Cadiz, Spain, Rotterdam, Netherlands, came back down the coast, went to Lisbon, Portugal, then went over to Civitavecchia, Italy, and then came back to Alicante, Spain. So got to see the world some pretty quickly, just for one summer. And then last summer I went and did cadet shipping, and the ship that's behind me right now is the ship that I cadet shipped on. It's a 1,000-foot long crude oil carrier, 1.3 million barrels. So there's a lot of oil on board. I was up in Alaska all the way down to Long Beach, California, and then back up to Washington State.
Okay.
So yeah, so that was that, and then getting ready to do junior cruise on the training ship, hopefully in the spring if all goes as planned. And then at that point, we're in charge. The freshmen are, in a sense, the unlicensed personnel on board, and the juniors they're the mates. They're the engineers, so the ones running the ship, with the oversight of the crew. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So let me give an overview of what the VOT students do with their summers, and we'll hear from Emily. So in the VOT program, those students are required to complete 3 co-op experiences, a minimum of 60 days work experience. These are out in industry, working with real companies, and that could be anywhere in the country. It can be outside the country as well. They tend to be some inside the United States, but they really could be anywhere. And so there's 3 opportunities to engage in industry, allows students to get a feel for different options that are out there. Maybe one summer they're working on a ferry and they decide that that's not for them, but the next summer they might work on a tugboat, and so on. So it's an opportunity to really get a feel for what's out there. And then those students also are required to do a 2-week cruise after their junior year here. And before I turn it over to Emily, I'll say this, that in the VOT side, it says a 60-day minimum work experience, 90 days recommended. I always tell students, get as much sea time as you can, because you're going to need it for the license. So I always encourage students, if they're happy in their situation out there in a co-op, to stay and rack up as much sea time as possible. Well, let's hear from Emily about her experiences there.
Thanks, Camp Parrot. So my freshman year, I did the Bowdoin cruise. The Bowdoin is a Arctic schooner run by the Academy. So we took that up to Nova Scotia and Newfoundland, and stayed up there, kind of sailed around there, came back down. Second year, I was in Alaska on a fish tender in Bristol Bay, working the salmon run fishery up there. This past year, I was local in Maine, in Eastport with Cook Aquaculture. I was on a aquaculture support vessel all summer, and yeah, my freshman year, I got the minimum amount of days, and I've been playing catch up just because of the license that I want. So my second year, I had 77 days. And this past year, I'm hoping to actually go back to them on breaks and stuff. So should still be accumulating time before the end of the year.
All right, thank you. So again, the program that Emily's in, the VOT program, 4 years, can lead to either a 500-ton license or a 1,600-ton license. And which it is depends on the sea service that a student accumulated, mostly in the summer. So if they want a 1,600-ton license, that would steer them towards certain types of summer work. If that's not important to them, they can get the 500-ton license and raise it later too. I guess I'll take this moment to talk a little. A common question is, well, why would a student choose one of these programs over another? The Third Mate MTO program is our most traditional program, and it's really designed to get people out onto big ships doing big ship stuff. That doesn't necessarily appeal to everyone. The hitches are longer and farther from home. And so the limited tonnage program often appeals to somebody who wants to work on the water. They're very clear about that, but they're not really drawn to a tanker or a container ship or something like that. But they see tugboats operating around a harbor and they think that's something that I might like. So, we have these different programs because not everybody wants to do the exact same thing. And both programs do have their own flexibilities too. Okay, so let's look at some pictures of boats, and then this may give people a better idea of what we're talking about with tonnages. Again, with the unlimited program, any tonnage, any oceans. And so the questions sort of arise, well, what is a 500-ton ship, or what is a 1,600-ton ship? And so we're looking at two vessels here. The upper one is what's called an articulated tug and barge unit. And so the barge and the tug are separate vessels, and the tug mates with the barge, it goes into the notch, and it becomes like a ship. And these can be pretty big. These can be 600, 700 feet long when you put the whole unit together. That's a limited tonnage vessel because the license goes to the tug, not to the barge. So that could be a 500-ton vessel there, the tug part, moving a large vessel around. So a lot of our students end up there. When we say tugs are not one thing, and we'll see some other possibilities around tugs, but that's an ATV. On the lower right is an offshore supply vessel, so going out to oil rigs, either in the Gulf of Mexico or anywhere. The big back deck there is for equipment, pipe and stuff like that to take out to the rig, and then also people are brought back and forth. So this too could be a limited tonnage vessel, 500 or 1,600 tons. Looking at a couple of vessels here that are definitely unlimited. We've got a tanker in the upper left, and it looks like a bulk carrier in the lower right. So these are unlimited tonnage ships. And George, what was the tonnage of your tanker? I think you mentioned the amount of oil, but.
It was 215,000 tons.
Yeah, okay. So those would be, what we're looking at here are the kinds of things that a third mate would be working on. And same for this slide. So the upper left, we're looking at a drill ship. This is a very specialized type of vessel for doing offshore drilling. Above the bow there, all the way to the right, is a helicopter pad for taking crew in and out. And the tower in the middle is where the drill rig goes down through the bottom of the vessel to the sea floor for setting up the wells down there. So this would be an unlimited tonnage vessel, more than likely. And then below that is a container ship. Okay, and I think you've all seen those, maybe not. And that also would fall squarely into the world of the unlimited third mate. We got a couple of other things here. This one on the upper right is a ship. I can't quite tell what sort of a ship it is, but that would be an unlimited vessel. But the one on the lower left, well, it's my lower left. I don't know if it is for you, but is it yours? Okay. So this is a small ship. This is a limited tonnage vessel owned by a company called Coastal Transport, operating up in Alaska. They move cargo all around the coast of Alaska. You don't have a lot of roads up there, so you've got these remote villages, and they need to get their supplies by ship and send out whatever they have by ship, which is often fish product, which Emily could tell us all about. On the lower right, we have a ferry. And this is a pretty big ferry, so I won't speculate on what the tonnage of that ferry is. But it could be 1,600 ton or possibly more. And then above that is what's called a ship assist tug. So when big ships come into ports, they have to slow right down and get up to the dock. They become pretty unmaneuverable. And if they hit the dock at any kind of speed, it does a lot of damage because they're so heavy. So there's these specialized kind of tugs that move the ships on and off of the dock. And it might take 2 or 3 of these little tugs to push the ship onto the dock. And so this type of work tends to be concentrated in a particular harbor. If you knew that you wanted to live in the Seattle area, the New York area, the Savannah area, there's more than likely one or more tug companies that do ship assist docking ships. Cruise ships, people mostly have some idea of what a cruise ship would be. This one on the upper left is an unlimited type of cruise ship. But in more recent years, we've seen a growth area with these smaller cruise ships, passenger vessels, which fall into the limited tonnage. So this could be under 500 tons, the one I'm looking at in the lower right there. And these vessels tend to go to remote places that bigger ships can't get to, more customized passenger experience than maybe a Carnival Cruise Line would have. Other types of vessels that students may work on, the provost mentioned some of them. Well, we heard from Emily that the aquaculture industry requires vessels, and the offshore wind is seemed to be finally taking off here in the United States, or getting some momentum. And I read an article this morning that said that industry, directly or indirectly, could end up employing as much as 250,000 people in 10 years from now. So another growth area. Research vessels were mentioned, often operated by universities doing ocean research. And then also we have students who go to work on professionally crewed yachts. And these yachts can be big, 200, 300, 400, 500 feet long. And they can work as captain's mates there. And so here's the shot of the waterfront here in Castine. It's a fantastic resource that we have. And in the foreground, we see the schooner Bowdoin that Emily mentioned. This is a historic wooden schooner that was built specifically for Arctic exploration, and came to the Academy. It was built in 1921, I believe, and we got it about 25 years ago. So we use this vessel for training the limited tonnage students. She's made almost 30 trips to the Arctic, and several of those were with Maine Maritime. In the background is the State of Maine, our 500-foot training ship that George would have done 2 cruises on. And then we have an active sailing team. We have all these boats, and students can get qualified to take these boats out and use them. So great extracurricular opportunities there. We do have a sailing team as well. Way to the far left, I think I see our tugboat, the Pentagoet. So we have our own tugboat, and we have a barge, and students can take a course. We call it tug barge, and they operate the tugboat themselves with the oversight of a captain. They move the barge around, they tow it, and they really get an amazing hands-on experience. Not seen here is a research vessel that we have. It's behind the State of Maine. And then also a navigational platform vessel, which is the one that is in the background of me, my virtual background. This is the Susan B. Clark, which we use to train students in navigation. And so what you may be able to see behind me are these chart tables, and each chart table has a compass with it, and each chart table has a radar set and a chart plotter, an electronic chart plotter, and the students also work on traditional paper charts. And we take them out and for a 4-hour lab, and they have to do a passage plan and then execute it. So we have this really amazing opportunity down here with our waterfront, and our location in Castine makes it just a beautiful area for getting out on the water. And I think that is my last slide. And so we can take questions, or we can, let's take some questions.
So Captain Parrott, there is one question that I kind of wanted to give to you. How does the development of autonomous ships influence the curriculum in the Marine Transportation degree program? And then it also goes on to say, we will always need trained mariners, but is it likely that the number of mariners on ships will decrease?
Yeah, it's a great question. A couple of parts to it. I think I'll go with the second part first. Ship crews have been decreasing ever since we had square rig ships, and technologies have been a part of that. So when we went to motorized vessels, ships crews got smaller and continue to get smaller as more things get automated. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see some of that trend continue as new technologies come along, but I don't see it as an imminent threat to our graduates at any time soon. Now, autonomous shipping, I'm really glad that was brought up, because one of the things I neglected to mention is that we actually have an autonomous ship or vessel that was brought here just this fall. So, and we've been talking about that at length. We've it has not, I would say, influenced the curriculum yet. And curriculum is not something that you change around easily because our curriculum is all approved by the Coast Guard. So we can't just make changes that we think would be a good idea. But we're certainly having that conversation, and now we actually have our own resource around that students can use. And I think over the coming year, we're going to be figuring out how to make use of that vessel to maximize the educational experience here.
So I'm gonna tag on to that for a second, Captain Barrett. I'm actually involved in the committee for the autonomous vessel that's on campus. It's the Quickwater. So right now she's been had an addition to autonomy within like her rudder. So right now she can almost work without a full crew on board. The only person that really needs to be there is just to make sure that she can see ahead. But they're working with SailPlan, who's a new company that's working with the traffic management of autonomous ships. And so I'm actually kind of glad to be a part of that. It's right now it's a 3-year program, so we're excited about it.
But it's definitely going to be a bigger factor in our industry within the with coming years. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you, Captain Parrott. Thank you, George and Emily.